Alessandro had not planned to be in this city, nor did he intend to walk into a low-end diner that looked like it belonged to another time. But desperate men take desperate paths, and when the private jet he boarded in Milan developed a sudden mechanical issue mid-flight, he was forced into an emergency landing in a country where he knew no one, and where the press had not yet caught his scent. His assistants and security team had been left behind in the chaos, and for the first time in decades, the man who commanded thousands found himself utterly, terrifyingly alone. His phone battery had died hours earlier. His luggage was still on the grounded plane, and the driver, assigned to pick him up, never made it because the flooding had shut down most major roads. Now, drenched, exhausted, and carrying the weight of a business collapse that threatened to destroy everything he had built over generations, he sat in a corner booth, staring at the steam rising from an untouched cup of tea that someone had silently placed in front of him, but forgot to charge him for. The diner was busy, filled with people seeking warmth and shelter from the storm. Waitresses rushed between tables, cooks yelled orders, phones rang, and customers complained about cold fries and late meals. No one noticed the billionaire's trembling hands or the deep lines carved into his face by weeks of tension. He had been in meetings for days trying to prevent a corporate takeover, one that would lead to thousands of layoffs and the potential loss of everything his family had built over generations. His late father's name, his mother's legacy, and the dreams he once nurtured all hung in the balance. Yet no one in that little diner knew any of it. To them, he was just a stranger who stared hopelessly at the rain, sometimes wiping away tears he hoped no one saw. He was thinking of giving up, truly giving up. For the first time, the empire felt too heavy, the expectations too crushing, and the loneliness too sharp. Even wealth, he realized, could not shield a human heart from breaking. It was then, in the middle of that loneliness, that a simple voice cut through the noise. A soft, gentle voice that carried warmth like a lantern in a winter night. A young waitress approached, holding a cloth and a small smile that seemed to brighten even the dim corner he sat in. She had dark curls pulled into a messy bun, tired but kind eyes, and a face that carried both struggle and resilience. She looked at the soaked man and noticed what others didn't, the way he shivered, the untouched tea, the way he kept his right hand pressed against his chest as if his breath hurt. She cleaned his table gently and said, "Buonasera, signore. State bene?" The moment the Italian words touched his ears, Alessandro's head snapped up. For a heartbeat, he wondered if he had hallucinated them. His own language, spoken softly in a foreign land, in a place where no one knew him, felt like the first thread of hope after weeks of unraveling. His lips trembled, his throat tightened, and for a moment he could not speak. The waitress, whose name was Elena, watched him closely and realized more was going on than she initially thought. Elena had learned Italian from her grandmother, who had lived in Florence most of her life. But she rarely got to use it, especially not in a place like this. The moment she noticed the unfamiliar man mumble Italian under his breath earlier, she remembered the sound of her grandmother's voice and decided to greet him the way she would have greeted any lost soul in her hometown. Alessandro felt something shift in his chest, something tender and sharp, like a wound touched by light. He wanted to respond fully, but all he managed was a fractured whisper that carried the exhaustion of his spirit. Elena knelt slightly so she could look directly into his eyes, and what she saw was not wealth or power, only a man drowning silently in his own life. She brought him a warm towel, a fresh cup of tea, and a plate of hot food, refusing to take his money when he tried to pay. She told him gently that he looked like someone who needed help more than a receipt. Those simple words cracked something open inside him. He had not heard such compassion in weeks. Everyone around him had been demanding something, from investors to journalists to board members. But this stranger gave without knowing anything about him.
As rain continued to rage outside, Alessandro found himself speaking, slowly at first, then uncontrollably. He told her about his company's collapse, the betrayal of people he trusted, the lawsuits thrown at him like spears, and the fear that he was losing everything his parents had built. He spoke of the guilt that gnawed at him every night, the thousands of employees depending on him, and how he felt too tired to fight anymore. He spoke about the emergency landing, the loneliness, and how he had not eaten properly in 2 days. He apologized for talking too much, for burdening her, but she gently assured him that sometimes hearts simply need to spill so they can heal. He asked why she had decided to speak Italian to him, and she told him about her grandmother, about growing up in a small home where money was scarce but love was abundant, about working 2 jobs to support her siblings' education, and about how she believed kindness was the only wealth that mattered. Alessandro watched her talk, and something changed inside him. He saw in her not just a waitress, but a reminder of everything he once believed in before money, pressure, and power clouded his purpose. Hours passed, and by the time the storm softened, Alessandro realized he had not felt this calm in months. Elena checked on him constantly, refilled his tea, brought him a dry apron to wrap around his shoulders, and even convinced the cook to prepare a special Italian dish for him. She didn't know who he was, not until later, and that made her kindness feel even more profound. When the rain finally stopped, the billionaire stood up and thanked her, promising he would never forget what she had done. But before he could leave, he collapsed. The exhaustion, stress, dehydration, and emotional weight finally took a toll. Elena screamed for help, and customers rushed over. She stayed by his side, holding his hand until the ambulance arrived, whispering Italian words of comfort. News later broke across the world. The reclusive Italian billionaire had collapsed in a diner during an unexpected storm. Cameras swarmed the diner, helicopters hovered, and reporters filled the streets. But amid the chaos, Alessandro asked for only one person, Elena. She came to the hospital, stunned and unsure, only to find him awake, smiling weakly, and asking her to sit beside him. He told her she reminded him of who he used to be, of the simple humanity he had lost along the way. He said her kindness had saved not just his life, but his purpose. And he proved it. After recovering, Alessandro held a global press conference. The world expected statements about his company, strategies, legal battles, and finances. Instead, he spoke about kindness. He spoke about an ordinary waitress who treated a broken billionaire like a human being when no one else did. He announced the creation of a massive employee support fund, a new mental health program within his corporation, and a complete restructuring plan that would save thousands of jobs. He dedicated every one of these decisions to the waitress who reminded him that humanity should be the heart of leadership. He did not mention her name publicly out of respect, but privately he changed her life in ways she never imagined. He offered to pay for her siblings' education, helped her secure a scholarship for her own studies, and ensured she never had to struggle alone again. He said she had given him courage when he had none left, and courage, he believed, was priceless. As months passed, their unlikely friendship grew into something deep and mutual. She helped him stay grounded, he helped her dream bigger. They remained close, not because of gratitude or charity, but because they recognized in each other the kind of humanity the world often overlooks. And every year, on the anniversary of the storm, Alessandro visited the diner not as a billionaire, but as a man who once sat alone in a corner booth and found a lifeline in a simple Italian greeting. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more emotional stories like this. Your support helps keep these powerful narratives alive.